People often assume that success is determined by intelligence, talent, or luck. But Carol Dweck spent decades studying what truly separates the top performers from the rest. And what she discovered changed psychology forever. She found that the difference is not how smart you are, but how you think about growth itself. Some people believe that their abilities are fixed traits. They're born smart or they're not. Others believe that skills can be developed through effort, strategy, and learning. These two ways of thinking form what Dweck called the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Every thought, every challenge, and every reaction to failure reveals which one you live by. In her research at Stanford and earlier at Columbia University, Dweck noticed that students who viewed intelligence as something they could improve kept trying longer even when tasks got harder. They treated difficulty as information, not as a verdict on their worth. In contrast, students with a fixed mindset saw challenge as proof they weren't good enough, so they gave up faster. Over years of experiments, she learned that the mindset we adopt shapes our motivation, resilience, and the outcomes we create. This is the foundation of her book, Mindset: The New Psychology of Success. The fixed mindset is built on the belief that qualities like intelligence, talent, or personality are static. If you believe that, then every situation becomes a test of how good you are. A failure means you're not smart. A rejection means you're not talented. This mindset traps you in constant judgment. People with fixed mindsets avoid challenges that might expose weakness. They hide mistakes, and they crave validation. Because if your identity depends on being perfect, then imperfection feels like humiliation. In the growth mindset, in contrast, is based on the belief that abilities can be cultivated through dedication and learning. It doesn't mean everyone is the same or that anyone can be anything instantly. It means that with practice, feedback, and persistence, people can get better at almost anything. In a growth mindset, failure isn't an identity, it's data. Mistakes are messages. Setbacks are not the end of the story, but part of the learning curve. This small mental shift completely transforms how you experience effort and criticism. One of Dweck's classic studies asked children to solve puzzles. After success, she praised some for their intelligence, "You're so smart," and others for their effort, "You worked really hard." When given a harder puzzle next, the intelligence-praised children gave up sooner and lost interest, while the effort-praised group worked longer and enjoyed the challenge. Just a few words of praise altered their future mindset. This revealed how praise, feedback, and parenting can unintentionally build a fixed mindset or nurture a growth one. The book explores how these mindsets affect every domain: school, work, sports, relationships, and leadership. In education, students with fixed mindsets focus on grades. They hide ignorance to appear smart. Those with growth mindsets focus on mastery. They ask questions, take feedback, and actually improve. Dweck observed that when teachers reward effort, strategies, and progress rather than innate ability, the whole classroom becomes more resilient. It's not about false positivity, it's about normalizing struggle as part of learning. In sports, the difference is visible in attitude. Fixed mindset athletes depend on natural talent. When they lose, they blame conditions, teammates, or unfairness. Growth mindset athletes see competition as feedback. They study their mistakes, train harder, and return stronger. Michael Jordan was one of Dweck's favorite examples. Cut from his high school team, he didn't quit. He used that rejection as fuel to train obsessively. His greatness wasn't magic talent, it was a growth mindset expressed through relentless refinement. In business, Dweck compared companies led by fixed mindset CEOs and growth mindset leaders. Fixed mindset leaders hire people who won't threaten their image. They avoid feedback, punish mistakes, and chase short-term appearances. Growth mindset leaders build cultures that reward curiosity, collaboration, and learning. At Microsoft, when Satya Nadella replaced the culture of know-it-alls with learn-it-alls, innovation exploded. The company stopped competing internally and began improving collectively. A perfect real-world example of Dweck's theory in action. The book also explores relationships. People with fixed mindsets often view relationships as tests of perfection. If there's conflict, something must be wrong. They expect compatibility to be effortless and become defensive during disagreements. Those with growth mindset see relationships as partnerships that evolve through communication, empathy, and adjustment. They don't panic when things get difficult, they treat friction as a chance to understand each other more deeply. In this way, a mindset can determine the emotional stability of entire relationships. Dweck shows how parents shape mindset early. When parents praise intelligence instead of effort, children learn that being smart is more important than getting better. They start hiding their weaknesses to protect that identity. But when parents praise persistence, strategy, and curiosity, children grow fearless about mistakes. They see learning as a living process, not a scoreboard. Dweck calls this process praise, acknowledging what the child did, not who they are. It's a small linguistic shift that rewires motivation for life. Teachers and coaches also play a critical role. Fixed mindset educators can crush curiosity by overemphasizing right answers. Growth mindset educators create a classroom where thinking is rewarded, not just correctness. Dweck even developed training programs to teach teachers how to use growth-based feedback. Schools that adopted this approach saw measurable gains in student performance, especially among struggling learners. The difference was not in the curriculum, but in the psychology of belief. One of the book's most powerful ideas is that even within the same person, different areas of life can hold different mindsets. You might have a growth mindset about sports, but a fixed one about relationships. The goal isn't to label yourself, but to become aware of those mental settings and consciously shift them. Dweck calls this mindset awareness. You can't grow what you don't recognize. Changing a mindset begins with language. Instead of saying, "I'm not good at this," add "yet." That single word reframes limitation as process. The phrase, "I can't do this yet," turns frustration into motivation. Growth mindset is not naive optimism. It's the discipline to interpret struggle as evidence of progress. Over time, that interpretation rewires your habits, confidence, and outcomes. In one study, underperforming middle school students were taught about the brain's plasticity, how effort and learning actually grow new neural connections. After this brief intervention, their grades rose and their motivation returned. Knowledge that the brain itself can change became the ultimate antidote to helplessness. It's not magic, it's neuroscience backing mindset theory. Dweck also warns against a false growth mindset, pretending to value effort but ignoring results. Real growth mindset is not about endless praise. It's about combining effort with strategy, reflection, and honest feedback. Saying just work hard without improvement is not growth. The key is effort plus learning, what she calls deliberate practice. In the workplace, teams that adopt a growth mindset become more innovative because they're not afraid of failure. Psychological safety allows experimentation. Mistakes become collective lessons instead of personal shame. This environment multiplies creativity because people speak up, share ideas, and iterate faster. In contrast, fixed mindset cultures breed fear, secrecy, and stagnation. The book emphasizes that mindsets are learned beliefs, not genetic traits. They can be unlearned and rebuilt. Adults who grow up equating mistakes with shame can still retrain their thinking. It starts with noticing self-talk. Every time you hear your inner critic say, "You'll never be good at this," challenge it with evidence of growth. Remember the first time you couldn't drive, cook, or speak a language, and now you can. Progress is proof of change. Dweck also describes how leaders can spread growth mindsets across entire organizations. It begins with humility, the willingness to admit what you don't know and model learning publicly. When a leader admits errors and adjusts strategy, it signals that learning is valued. Over time, employees mirror that behavior. This transforms corporate DNA. In parenting, Dweck encourages replacing performance pressure with curiosity. Instead of asking, "Did you win?" ask, "What did you learn?" This question keeps the focus on process. Children raised this way develop resilience because their self-worth isn't tied to outcomes. They become less afraid of trying new things and more likely to pursue mastery for its own sake. Dweck calls this process praise, acknowledging what the child did,
not who they are. The book's final chapters explore how mindsets shape identity. Fixed mindsets lead people to seek validation, titles, recognition, superiority. Growth mindsets lead them to seek contribution, improvement, mastery, purpose. The more your self-worth depends on external approval, the more fragile it becomes. But when it's built on growth, failure can't destroy it because failure is part of the foundation. Dweck's ultimate message is that a person's potential is unknown and unknowable. It's impossible to predict what someone can achieve with sustained effort and a learning mindset. Human capacity is dynamic. That means every limitation you feel today is temporary if approached with curiosity and perseverance. Applying this to real life, if you catch yourself avoiding feedback, take it as a sign of fixed thinking and lean toward learning. If you
Feel envy at someone's success? Study what they did instead of resenting it. If you're afraid to start because you might fail, remember that failing to start guarantees failure anyway. The growth mindset turns fear into energy. It converts the need to prove yourself into the desire to improve yourself. Over years of teaching, Dweck saw transformations that seemed impossible. Students who once dreaded math began enjoying it. Athletes who plateaued broke records. Employees once terrified of mistakes became innovators. The only variable that changed was belief, the decision to treat ability as something expandable. The practical takeaway is simple but profound. Effort matters more than appearance, progress matters more than perfection, and curiosity matters more than certainty. When you view effort as a path to mastery, you start enjoying the process. When you treat mistakes as feedback, they lose their power to shame you. When you stop trying to prove and start trying to improve, growth becomes inevitable. Mindset isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about facing them with a learning orientation. It's choosing reflection over reaction. It's understanding that challenges are opportunities for expansion, not proof of inadequacy. Carol Dweck's research shows that when you change how you think about learning, you change the trajectory of your entire life. The human brain is not a finished product. It's a work in progress. And the most powerful thing you can ever learn is that you can keep learning. That is the essence of the growth mindset. It's not an idea, it's a lifelong practice. Each time you choose to learn instead of defend, to try again instead of retreat, you rewire your mind toward possibility. So whether you're teaching, parenting, leading, or simply trying to better yourself, remember this: intelligence, talent, and potential are starting points, not limits. The growth mindset is the art of becoming, a mindset that transforms effort into ability, failure into feedback, and time into mastery. Carol Dweck's message is both scientific and spiritual. Your future is not predetermined, it's developed. When people first hear about the growth mindset, many of them say, okay, so I just need to believe in myself more. But Dweck is very clear. Growth mindset is not about blind confidence, it's about teachability. It's not saying I can do anything, it's saying I can get better at something if I approach it the right way. That difference matters because the first version can become delusional, while the second stays grounded in effort, strategy, and feedback. Real growth is measurable. You should be able to look back 3 months and see better skill, better understanding, or better results. If nothing is changing, then you're not using the mindset. You're just talking about it. A huge part of the book is Dweck warning people against what she calls the false growth mindset. This happens when people say things like, "It's okay, I tried," but they didn't actually change strategies, seek help, or analyze what went wrong. Effort alone is not the hero, effective effort is. In her classroom examples, she noticed that some students would proudly say, "But I worked hard," after failing a test, and they assumed that made the result acceptable. Dweck challenged that. She said, working hard is the starting point, not the finish line. If the method isn't working, you try a different one. Growth mindset is not a permission slip to stay stuck, it is a mindset that demands adjustment. This is where feedback comes in. In a fixed mindset, feedback feels like attack. If the teacher says, you need to improve your writing structure, the student hears, you are bad at writing. But in a growth mindset, feedback is a map. It shows where to go next. Dweck recommends teaching children, students, and even employees to ask for feedback using questions like, what is one thing I can do better next time? Or, where did I lose clarity? This shifts the focus from identity to improvement.
Imagine if every team in a company adopted that posture. Mistakes would stop being secrets and would start being shared lessons. Another powerful contribution of the book is how it reframes the word effort. In fixed mindset cultures, effort is seen as something only the not talented people need. Smart people shouldn't have to try. Gifted people shouldn't struggle. So the moment something is hard, people conclude, maybe I'm not meant for this. Dweck calls this the effort equals low ability trap. Growth mindset breaks that. In growth thinking, effort is what turns ability into achievement. Even genius needs practice. Even talent needs training. The most successful people in any field are the ones who treated effort as normal, not embarrassing. Let's apply this to students. A fixed mindset student thinks intelligence is a number. If they get a low grade, they panic because it must mean they're dumb. So they avoid hard classes, avoid raising their hand, and avoid subjects that don't make them look smart. A growth mindset student treats each test like feedback about their current level. If they score low, they look for what they didn't understand, ask the teacher, watch videos, and try again. Over a semester, the second student can outperform the first, even if the first was naturally smarter. That's why Dweck keeps repeating, mindset creates trajectory. Now think about athletes. A young athlete with a fixed mindset thinks, if I was really talented, I wouldn't make mistakes. So when they miss a shot or fail a drill, they get emotional or blame others. A growth mindset athlete thinks every rep is teaching my body, so a missed shot is information about timing, posture, or power. That mindset makes training sustainable because the athlete is not emotionally destroyed every time they don't perform perfectly. This is why coaches who praise hustle, learning, and adjustment produce more resilient players than coaches who only praise winning. In relationships, the same pattern appears. A fixed mindset in love says, if we were truly compatible, we wouldn't argue. A growth mindset says, two people with two different histories will have friction, and we can learn how to communicate better. Dweck talks about how some people interpret disagreement as incompatibility, so they leave or stonewall. But people with a growth orientation use communication skills, ask clarifying questions, and work on themselves. Growth mindset doesn't just build skill, it builds emotional maturity. Let's move to parenting because Dweck spends a lot of time on how parents can unintentionally build a fixed mindset. She found that when parents label kids too early, you're the smart one, you're the athletic one, you're the artist, children begin to protect that label instead of exploring. The smart child avoids hard things because if they struggle, they won't look smart anymore. The athletic child might refuse academic challenges. The solution Dweck offers is to praise the process, not the person. Instead of, you're so smart, say, I love how you kept trying different ways. Instead of, you're a natural, say, I noticed you practice that a lot. That kind of praise tells the child what matters is what you do, not what you were born with. There's another subtle piece, how we respond to failure in front of kids. If a parent gets frustrated and says, I'm just not a math person, the child learns that ability is fixed. But if the parent says, this is tricky, I'm going to try a different method, the child learns that ability is expandable. Children learn mindsets not only from what we tell them, but from what we model. A parent who never tries new things teaches a fixed life. A parent who keeps learning teaches a growth life. Dweck also gives tools for teachers and managers. One simple method is to normalize the learning zone. At the start of the year or project, tell students or teams, here, mistakes are expected. Here, struggle is good. Here, we improve because we spot what doesn't work. That framing reduces shame. Then combine that with clear high standards. We expect you to improve. We don't expect instant perfection, but we expect effort, strategy change, and persistence. Growth mindset is not lowering the bar, it is changing how people climb to it.
She also talks about the power of the word yet. This seems small, but it's very psychological. I can't do this locks the brain. I can't do this yet keeps the brain open. In brain scans, people with a growth mindset showed more activity when they made mistakes. Their brains stayed engaged to correct the error. People with fixed mindsets showed less activity. Their brain checked out once they were wrong. That means mindset affects how the brain pays attention. The word yet keeps attention alive.
A really practical exercise from the mindset approach is the challenge journal. You take an area where you usually react with a fixed mindset, maybe math, public speaking, social situations, or criticism, and for 1 week, you write down the trigger and rewrite it with a growth interpretation. For example, I froze when I had the present. I'm not good at public speaking. Becomes, I froze because I haven't presented enough yet. I can improve this by practicing in smaller groups. Over time, this reprograms your automatic response. You stop seeing challenge as a threat and start seeing it as training. Dweck also mentions that some environments push people into fixed mindsets even if they are naturally growth-oriented. Highly competitive schools, perfectionistic families, or workplaces that punish mistakes can make people hide effort to look talented. That's why leaders have a responsibility to design cultures that reward learning. If only final results are rewarded, people will play it safe. If curiosity and iteration are rewarded, people will innovate. Mindset is not just individual psychology, it becomes culture. Now let's connect this to careers and business. Many adults carry a silent, fixed mindset about money, creativity, or entrepreneurship. They say things like, I'm not a business person, I'm not creative, or I'm bad with technology. Dweck would call those fixed mindset identity statements. The growth version would be, I don't know business yet, or I'm still learning how to sell, or I haven't practiced design. That tiny reframe reopens doors. Many people never start projects, YouTube channels, or businesses because they believe the skill should already be inside them. Growth mindset tells you skill is built through doing. You don't start because you are good, you become good because you start. This is especially relevant for creators like you. A fixed mindset creator checks views and says, this video flopped, so I'm not good. A growth mindset creator checks views and says, okay, the hook wasn't strong enough, retention dropped at minute 2, my title didn't match the promise, let me adjust. One approach takes it personally, the other takes it analytically. Dweck would tell creators to track improvement metrics, better intros, clearer structure, more engaging stories, not just viral numbers. Viral numbers can be random. Growth is not. Another thing Dweck stresses is that mindset change is not instant. You don't read the book and become growth-minded forever. The fixed mindset will always try to return, especially in areas where your ego is involved. For example, if you see someone younger than you succeeding faster, your fixed mindset might whisper, you'll never catch up. That's where you practice. You tell yourself, what can I learn from them? What did they do differently? How can I apply it? That switch from envy to curiosity is pure growth mindset. She also says to watch out for triggers. There are 4 common ones: challenge, obstacles, criticism, and the success of others. These are the moments when the fixed mindset usually appears. So if you know your trigger is criticism, you can prepare in advance. Next time someone gives me feedback, I will listen fully, write it down, and respond tomorrow instead of getting defensive. That's using mindset proactively, not reactively. Let's talk about talent for a second, because people sometimes misread Dweck and think she's saying talent doesn't exist. She's not saying that. She's saying talent is only the starting point. Some people do start ahead, but even they need growth mindset to stay ahead. History is full of gifted people who plateaued because they relied on talent and avoided situations where they could fail. Meanwhile, less talented but more growth-minded people kept improving and eventually passed them. So mindset protects talent from wasting away. Dweck also describes how organizations trap themselves with fixed thinking. If a company only promotes the stars and ignores learners, it will eventually run out of innovation. If schools only reward high test scores and never reward persistence, students will become grade chasers, not knowledge seekers. She argues that systems should reward process, creativity, collaboration, and improvement, the ingredients of long-term excellence. A powerful way to install growth mindset in your daily life is to build a learning identity. Instead of saying, I'm good at video editing, or I'm bad at sales, make your identity, I'm someone who learns. That identity survives failure. If you're a talented person and you fail, your identity breaks. But if you're a learner and you fail, that's exactly what you expected, data to learn from. This is why growth mindset makes people more emotionally stable. Their worth isn't destroyed by one bad day. Let's bring it back to the core promise of the book. Potential is unknowable. This is such a hopeful idea. It means you don't actually know how good you can get. You don't know how strong your brain can become. You don't know how skilled your communication can get if you practice. You don't know how far your business can grow if you keep iterating. People quit too early because they misjudge their ceiling. Growth mindset says, don't assume a ceiling, assume a curve. So in practical terms, how do you build a growth mindset? Step by step. First, notice fixed mindset statements in your head. I'm not good at this. I always fail at this. They're just naturally better. Second, rewrite them with yet, or so far, or what can I learn? Third, deliberately choose challenges just above your current level, not impossible, but stretching. Fourth, seek feedback instead of praise. Praise tells you you're good. Feedback tells you how to get better. Fifth, surround yourself with people and environments that reward learning. If your group mocks effort, you will hide effort. If your group celebrates progress, you will chase progress. Finally, Dweck ends with a very empowering note. Mindsets can be taught. They can be taught to kids, to adults, to teams, to entire communities. That means we are not prisoners of how we were raised. Even if we grew up in a family that shamed mistakes, we can choose to build a different culture in our own home. Even if we worked under fixed mindset bosses, we can lead with growth. Even if we spent years thinking we just aren't good at things, we can begin demonstrating to ourselves day by day that ability grows with use. So the essence of mindset is this: you are not done. Your intelligence is not done. Your talent is not done. Your personality is not done. You can become a better learner, a better partner, a better leader, a better creator, a better parent. The key is to stop asking, am I good? And start asking, how can I get better? That shift from proving to improving is the real psychology of success that Carol Dweck wanted the world to understand.